What's going on YouTube? Evan here with Cloud9 Aquariums. Alright, so you've already seen we're doing this dirty tank thing. I've finally finished doing the capping. Now, let me just walk you through it before I actually show you what's going on so you don't get so distracted by how beautiful it is because it changed so much. But not really. So basically the reason we cap is because we don't want to have excess nutrients in the water. The reason we don't want that actually in the water column is we want to save it for the roots of the plants, okay? If it gets in the water column, that's what gets us to have all of our algae problems. The tannins, which are actually colorants that will leach out of the actual soil itself. So if you were just to say, for instance, put dirt right in the bottom of your tank and fill it up with water, I mean, not only is it instantly just going to completely muddy the water, if it even settles down ever, it's just going to be an absolute nightmare. Your water is going to be very tea-colored. It'll have, there's going to be immense algae outbreaks. It's just going to be an absolute disaster. Especially if you have any bottom feeders or anything like that, they're just going to kick it up every time. I mean, your tank's never going to look clean. It's going to be disgusting. So this is how we kind of get the natural, good effects of soil with all those nutrients that are awesome for our roots, while still keeping a clean environment for our fish. And trying to actually make it look professionally done and not completely coated in algae because we all like to look at our fish and our plants. So it makes life a lot easier. So basically when you're capping, by capping I mean you're going to be covering your soil with either gravel, some people like to do sand, things like that. But the basic thing is you want to cover it with at least an inch of some type of other substrate, okay? I've seen people do the fluorite or something like that on top of dirt too. I mean, I think that's completely unnecessary. But hey, if you got the money to do it and you really want to, by all means, it couldn't hurt anything. It's just going to be one more thing that the roots can feed off of. So, but with that being said, I did use just a black gravel on top of black soil. With the dirt itself, I know I didn't really get into specifics of depth, but I like to do about 2 inches minimum in the front of the tank. And about 3 in the back, because again, not only is that the depth, but you tend to plant your plants, more, especially the larger ones, towards the back of the tank, so that the extra depth of soil is definitely good for the roots, just to really grab onto. We already went through, where I like to mound, especially if you're going to do a larger plant, something like that, which has big root systems, such as like if you have large sword plants, something like that, they also like that too. Let's see, what else should we talk about? Oh, okay, well, actually, when you're putting your dirt in also, as I'm capping it, I actually like to pat my dirt down a little bit. You don't need to pack it, you need to go through with a tamper and really pack it super hard. But it doesn't hurt just to tamp it down a little bit with your hand. Just pat it down, just because if you don't do that, you'll notice that when you're filling it up and planting it, there's going to be a lot of settling going on, because there'll be like any type of air that's trapped in the soil. If there's any bubbles or anything like that, that'll all be coming up. And you'll notice that's going to happen regardless over the next couple weeks when you first set up your tank. But you have a lot less settling if you push it down. You don't want to go so much so that you can't really even get your plant's roots in there. But definitely pack it down pretty good before you put your cap on top of it. That just helps prevent any type of settling and things like that. And so that way when you do try to build up a terrain or anything like that, it'll actually hold that form. So it's a good thing to do. So with that being said, I will show you what it looks like now. I haven't put the wood back in, but it's just some black gravel. You'll see I still maintain my hump here. It's hard to tell until we have water in there, but there is about an inch on top of it right now. Once you can actually fill it up with water and you can see better, I'll show you over here, maybe you can see a little bit better how I've actually mounted the back, just a little bit. It's not quite so visible from the sides. A lot of times what I'll do from the sides, because if you have a tank that's visible directly from the side, it does look kind of strange if it's going up like this, too drastically. So what I'll do a lot of times, I'll still make this pretty close to level, but then right here I'll just mound it up, within the next, inch or two, just so that way from this visual point you can't tell that it's actually mounted up in the back. But I've gotten pretty good at hiding it. But that's just one of those things we like to do. Let's see, maybe I didn't try quite as hard over there. So yeah, it's nothing super terribly exciting, But what's coming up next will be kind of a little bit more interesting. But this is definitely just setting the groundwork again for the entire tank. You know, you really want to take your time, and it doesn't mean you spend hours on doing something like this, but definitely, you know, don't rush through it, because again, like I said, if you skip down one process, for instance, you don't want to tamp it down, well, you're going to have a nightmare later on when the bubbles come up. And when those bubbles do come out, it'll bring the soil with it, and then you're going to have this overturning of soil and rock, and you really don't want to mix those together, okay? So definitely 2 defined layers of soil, and then you want to put your gravel there. So definitely want to make sure there's a good layer. And again, if you don't get, so, you know, say for instance you don't get a, you know, full inch of gravel quite yet, you know, you can plant it, and definitely once you're filled it up, you can also put more gravel in later on. I've experimented with that before and tried to do a little bit less gravel just so I could get some plants rooted easily. Only problem I found with that though is the same thing. If your cap is too thin, there's just going to be so much excess nutrients in the water that it's just, you're going to have an algae outbreak. So take it from me, I've already done the research and already gone through the problems and hassles, so that you don't have to do it. So if you don't believe me, by all means, knock yourself out. But I'm just letting you know, you're going to want at least 1 inch of stone. If you want to go with 1.5 inches or 2 inches, that's fine too. But I definitely wouldn't exceed 2 inches, just because you're not going to even, it's going to take a very long time for those roots to actually penetrate into the soil, and you're going to notice that your plants are going to take a while to actually grab and take hold and then really take off. So I like to do about 1 inch, maybe a little more, but that usually works pretty well for me. So stay tuned, because coming up next we're going to be doing the hardscape, and I'm going to be planting, so stay tuned.